What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Lexi Johnson, and this is my co-host and husband, Brett Johnson. He's situating himself over there on the couch.
Pillow's getting all bunched up.
Making your nest, baby bird.
Mm-hmm.
So we were on a walk over the weekend and kind of just discussing what we were going to talk about on the podcast this week. And we have a shared note that we contribute to you like all day long. And a lot of the things that we want to talk about, that we talk about regularly, that we think you could find value from, are centered around self-development. And that's going to be an overarching theme, I think, of just things that we discuss, because it's really, it's a staple in our lives. It's things that we constantly consume, be it through, books or podcasts or just any sort of content where we're very tied into the self-developmental world. However, I kind of had this realization that you're likely not listening to this, with the priority of it being self-development. You're likely listening to it because you have some sort of connection or draw to Brett and I, individually or collective. And I think that it's important that, we can absolutely provide value there and provide our experience, but maybe get to know your hosts a little bit, and we can talk about, just Brett and Lexi. So I'm excited. I think it's also very relevant, and I'm intrigued to hear Brett's recollection, because we're going to talk about how we met. I can't remember the last time we discussed this, but I had listened to a podcast earlier today. It's very relevant to the fact that we're strolling down memory lane now. But in the podcast, he said apparently that we only have that 50% of our memory is inaccurate. Apparently, it's one of three things. It's either generalized, distorted, or exaggerated. And so I'm really intrigued to kind of hear you tell it, hear my story. I don't know. We might have some haziness, or the Venn diagram might not line up perfectly, which I'm excited about. So, you want to hop in?
Sure. So rewind to what would have been my second semester of my sophomore year in college. That'd have been correct. Whenever I met you.
No, why would I start college when you were second semester? I didn't start in December.
Well, there you go. See, we're off to a great start.
I started school at the first semester.
No, my second semester of my second year.
Why would I start college second semester?
I said that rewind to me.
I know, but we met my first semester.
I know. I was talking from my perspective.
Did you meet me in a dream the semester prior?
Right. Well, clearly we're off to a great start.
I love this already. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Whenever it was, I still think I'm correct. I don't understand where we're getting off here.
When do you think second semester happens?
The second semester of my sophomore year was whenever that was my first semester of being president, and that's why I'm drawing my mind back to that point in time, because
what time of year do you think the second semester happens?
Okay, maybe that's where.
Yeah, so the first semester of the school year happens August to Christmas.
Right.
So that would imply that second semester would happen in the spring. That's right now.
Okay.
You following?
Whatever. Sorry, I don't.
No, I love this. I think that, this is why people would listen, because it's realistic. I guarantee there are men and women laughing right now just thinking about, my partner and I for sure would not line up, but it's funny to me. So go ahead.
Okay. The timeline doesn't really matter of what part of my college career I was in, but nonetheless, I had already been pretty well acquainted with the college life. You, on the other hand, had just gotten to the university, more or less.
Yeah, I was a freshman. We both went to the University of Missouri. Go Tigers.
Yep. So we just so happened to have a mutual friend, and it was somebody who was my pledge brother, and it was somebody who you knew from your high school. Yeah. And the chances of that
Which is crazy.
Slim.
Yeah, so there was one singular person that I knew ahead, like older than me, that went from my high school to that college, because we both went to really small high schools. Like we both graduated in the 20s, and just the chances of like someone I knew actually at Mizzou inviting me to this party, very slim. So the fact that we had that mutual friend, it was like, wow, shout out Matt Bodenhamer.
Yeah. So because of that mutual relationship, we essentially got introduced to each other. You came to the basement of the parking garage that we had at our frat, and we were having a parking garage party, and I was kind of I guess overseeing everything that was happening, still fairly well lubricated in terms of alcohol. So
The way you're describing it sounds like a police report. You're like, I was overseeing things. I was well lubricated with alcohol. What the hell?
All right. Just try to make it a little more loose. All right. I was half drunk probably. So I was just walking around, just monitoring things, and you were walking into the parking garage with Bodie, and he just kind of casually introduced us. And at the time, I was just like, this is, a really hot girl, and she's new here. We kind of hit it off. He created a little bit of an opportunity for us to just have a small conversation and make some small talk. And we had like these immediate similarities because of sports and small town stuff. So there was an immediate connection. But at the time, I was just basically, I was kind of a little there, a little elsewhere, because I had other stuff on my mind.
You were partially lubricated.
I was partially lubricated. Also, I was just literally exiting the party. Like I was ready to just go back to my room. I don't even know what time it would have been at that point in time, but probably around midnight, roughly. You were out being a street youth.
Street youth.
Late at night.
So I came to that party. Mind you, the parties at my high school were like, if you went to a party, it was like in a cornfield or in a barn or a shop. So like I was not experienced with real like parties. So Bodie, our friend, had texted me and said, hey, we're having this party, whatever. I had recently got done like working out. So I threw on a tank top and leggings. My hair was still wet, and I went to a party that was held in a parking garage, which you can imagine it, like in my head, dress code, leggings and a Mizzou tank top is very appropriate. Mm-hmm. Which is just funny, like looking back to, how people dress going out. That was not exactly the attire that you expected to be wearing when you met your future husband. But I remember exactly what you're wearing. You were wearing a powder blue George Brett t-shirt, the one with the tar stain on it. And I remember exactly where you were standing. And I remember, obviously I'm a huge Royals fan, and that was something that we got talking about. But I spotted your George Brett t-shirt because at the time I was strictly averse to anyone that had any sort of affiliation outside of Kansas City sports. Like, they were dead to me. So, I mean, this was in the middle of the first World Series run in my lifetime. So that was a huge, huge bonus. You got your foot in the door automatically there. And then we started talking about sports, and we have a mutual all-time favorite running back.
Priest Holmes.
Yes. I love Priest Holmes. Priest Holmes is the reason I love football so much. So we talked about that, and immediately Tony G, yes. We had very similar taste in all-time greats in our head. So,
and at that time, you also have to kind of look back, and the Royals were like on top of it. Like the Royals were like fun. It was the most fun that the Royals were in our lifetime.
That's what I said. The first, I was vulnerable. You were wearing a Royal shirt.
I know, but
you
I mean,
talked
like,
Kansas City sports to me. I mean, that is a
damsel
in distress.
There's the George Brett stuff, but then I mean, like, Royals was at the top. It was top of mind for everybody.
Yeah.
So I mean that there's more to that side of it. So there's a reason why I'm kind of underlining that part. But carry on.
Yeah, I mean, that was just funny. Yeah, so I was drinking Busch Light in a parking garage basement when I met my future husband. Your turn.
Oh yeah, brother.
That was probably another thing looking back that like a separator, because again, I'm just going to reference and I don't condone or approve of underage drinking, but I have to lay the scenery here that I'm from a super rural area, so any sort of parties or anything like that was like, if you didn't drink Busch Light, then you weren't drinking. And I specifically, I'm going to shout out my older siblings, because they told me, if you go to college and you don't like beer, then no one's going to like you, essentially, was basically the interpretation that I was under from my
one pathetic loser.
Yeah. Basically the impression that I had of college going into it was like, if you don't drink beer, then you're not going to get invited to parties. You're likely not going to make friends. Like, it's so funny to think, but my older siblings, that was their experience at their college. So they were getting me ready. And so I only drank beer, which probably, again, like your Royals jersey got your foot in the door with me, being one of very few girls that was drinking Busch Light and preferring Busch Light. Probably.
That is a flex. That is for sure a flex, especially in college. If you're just throwing back Busch and Bud Light, it's just throw a girl a beer and she's like, yeah, crack it open.
Yeah. We can fast forward to our wedding where I was literally throwing back. Okay, guys, you're going to get to know us really well. Fast forward really quickly. I'm no longer a drinker. I drank my fair share in college and that period of my life, but I did used to be a beer girl. I was a strong beer girl to the point that at our wedding we had like these troughs with beer in them, and
literal horse troughs with
ice and beer. Think about like a gigantic cold plunge. And at the end of the night, I was wading in my wedding dress, tossing beers to people.
Needless to say, that wedding dress has seen better days.
Yeah, it is Busch Light brown. But anyway, okay. Rewind.
All right.
2015.
All right, got to get back in the right frame of mind. Yeah. Memory does get distorted. You just I have to kind of like relive all this.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So rewind all the way back. There's a lot to the lead up, which we would be here for hours if I went into all the detail that went into the lead up of me essentially getting you to go on a date with me. It was a very trying time, but let's just I guess fast forward a little bit into the phase of where I basically, okay, so I got you to commit to go to formal with me.
By guilt tripping me.
Yeah, little.
He said, he asked me.
Oh, I told you I wouldn't go. I gave you an ultimatum, essentially.
Yeah, he asked me, and I said, maybe. And he said, well, if you don't go with me, then I'm just not going to go. And, well, I was a freshman in college.
Brilliant.
He was the president of his fraternity. He was older than me. And I'm like, he's not going to go? What? If I don't go, he's not going to go? So I'm like, okay, maybe. And mind you, I had to go tell my parents, hey, I'm going to go to Nashville, Tennessee, out of state with a stranger that you've never met. We're going to stay in a hotel together. We're likely going to be drinking. I'm still 19. This was just like in my head. I'm like, I don't really know how I'm going to achieve this. So I said maybe.
Had they met me yet?
I don't think so. No. I have to say,
first time I met them was at a Royals tailgate.
Yes. I have to say also that, like, I had recently broken up with a high school boyfriend just because I wanted to have fun in college. I wanted just to experience it. And Kendall here walked into my life and just threw that completely to the wind. But I specifically remember telling my roommate, one of my best friends, one of our best friends really to this day. I remember telling her our freshman year, like coming back, and I was like, well, it's funny because the first time we came back from this date that I'll have Brett tell the story, or quote unquote date, Molly was like, how'd it go? And I walked in and I'm like, he has a beautiful truck. I loved Brett's truck. But I told her, I said, Brett Johnson is the kind of guy that you marry. But I mean, I don't want to date the guy. I don't want to date anyone. I don't want to be, in a relationship. And it wasn't very long until I was texting my sister, my older sister, Ashton, saying I would be very surprised if I didn't marry Brett Johnson.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Okay, now you can tell about the first date. Whatever.
Okay. So, again, it was a very trying time. So I essentially got her to commit to going to formal with me through a lot of trial and error, a lot of me kind of testing this out. Nope, didn't work. She's saying she doesn't want to go. All right, I'm just gonna give her an ultimatum apparently, and I kind of played the guilt trip, I suppose. Played it from that way.
A very trying time. Brett Johnson's not used to getting told no.
Sounds so bad.
I'm just. It's so funny to think about.
Let's move on past that. So you committed to going to formal with me, but then there was a lag period. Like, it's not like we just immediately went to formal.
Yeah, it was a couple months out.
Yeah, I don't remember how far out it was, but there was quite a bit that happened in between that moment, and I think that there was a point in time also where you still tried to back out, and then I got you to continue sticking in and going to formal with me. But again, memory's kind of hazy there. But you, it was homecoming time, and homecoming is like a huge deal at Mizzou. Like, it is. Yeah, it was born at Mizzou.
It's
so
like
I mean,
a religion at that college.
It's a very big deal. So if you're from Mizzou, you get it. If you're not, you might not. I don't know. Homecoming is it's celebrated everywhere, but at Mizzou, it's just like it is. It's a religion. So in a nutshell, there are different parts of homecoming involved with Greek life. So we were both in Greek life, and there are different segments of homecoming where essentially you get a frat and a sorority, you get paired together, and you have to do these different tasks, more or less. And the better you do it, then the more points you get, and the objective is to win homecoming, to get first. And one of the biggest things overall is donating blood, which is an awesome thing.
For a blood drive, let's be specific. Now that we're talking about like this Greek life religion, we should probably, it's like a Blue Cross or Red Cross blood drive. I know, but the way that you were saying it, it's one of those things where if you understand, you know where everybody drink the Kool-Aid, where but I wanted to just make sure that was very clear.
It was a sophisticated blood drive.
It was on the up and up.
Yes. So the whole point of homecoming is to get as much participation as possible in your pairings to as a collective group effort, get first place. And as part of that, with the blood drive, you want to get as many volunteers as you can to donate blood for the sorority. And it just so happened that year our frat was not involved with homecoming because we were on probation, long story. So I was freed up to not have to donate blood for our homecoming pairing. And I said, well, you asked me.
No, you asked if I would go to Andy's with you, and I said sure, but first you have to go with me to donate blood.
Right.
And
okay.
He
so
agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So I put out a little feeler there to see if you would go on not really a date, but just go get ice cream. And yeah, that was tough because
Yeah.
I don't do well with needles or giving blood. Like, it's not like it's a great thing. Like, it's not like I just don't want to give blood. I have this mental thing with needles. Like,
So, bless his heart. This man agrees without hesitation. When he says, "Do you want to get ice cream?" I said, "Yes, but first you have to donate blood with me." So we went to the blood drive together, and he agreed without hesitation, but he also left out a very important detail that he does not do needles to the point where he passes out around any needle. So here he is, like, we're walking into the blood drive together, and I go give blood. I'm like at the snack table wondering where Brett is, and meanwhile this man had been carted off, like feet in the air, wet washcloth on his forehead, and he is yellow. He had passed out.
I did not pass out. I was really close to passing out.
Okay.
And I was just hoping you hadn't seen me. And you had not, correct?
Again, my memory isn't, I can't remember if
I think I was very descriptive way later, and I told you that they had to lay me down because that's like the first phase of like of preventing pass outs at the blood drive is, all right, we're going to lay you down because if you're upright and you're getting lightheaded, you're toast, like game over. But if they lay you flat and then get a cold washcloth on your forehead,
that hits the spot.
That's instant, well, not instant revival, but that's plan A right there. And if that doesn't work, then you're probably out.
Yeah, I've since seen it happen, but yeah. You filled me in.
Anyway, so I did agree to go ahead and volunteer to give blood. And yeah, fast forward, thought I was doing well, and usually it happens toward the middle to end, and you start getting cold, and then I get clammy, and then I looked at the needle, I think, and that's the worst thing you can do whenever you don't like it, especially if you start seeing like the blood like pooling up in that bag. Ugh. And
like a juice box.
Yeah, human juice box. So it got to me, and I think I finished, maybe. I'm really not sure. And they wheeled me off, and I was just thinking, like, please don't let her see me in this state. And I am very certain that you did not, because I remember they didn't want me to get up, but I was like, I can't stay back here. She's going to find me. Like, it's going to be obvious if I just disappeared, and she's going to maybe think I left, or she's going to look around for me, and she's going to find me back here in like the wimp in the wimp zone, like where everybody goes to get carted behind the curtain.
The wimp zone.
And so then I went to the tables to try to find something to eat, because I was like, okay, grab some cookies or something, and I'll be on my way. So I never told you, like I ended up finding you, and I think I found you toward like the exit. And I remember this a little more vividly because I think that it was a much more like important moment for me, because I found you again, and then I was like, okay, I got to play it cool. And we almost left without getting our t-shirts. And I remember that being like a big thing, because I was like, I got to have something to show for this. You know, if I don't have a t-shirt after all this, I got to have something. So that was one of the things you get after you get done with the blood drive, is you have to sign off. That's a very important thing. Also for that you actually did do it, to get the points, and then you get your shirt. So we almost missed doing that, walked back, did that, and then we went out, got on our shuttle to go back to Greektown, and then things get a little hazier there, but I think that we went our separate ways, and then we reconvened.
Okay.
And then I took you to Andy's, which was essentially our first quote-unquote date.
Our first date. Yes. We've been big fans of Andy's frozen custard ever since. Yeah, that was special, especially just the retelling of it. And when I had later found out that he passed out and he tried to play it cool, and just him agreeing so fast to do that, I was like, okay, I remember telling my mom about that, and she was like, this kid passes out every time he's around a needle, and he agreed to give blood with you? Like, yeah, I remember that being something really special, as silly as it sounds. But I was not into it quite yet. You had asked me to go to a Chiefs game.
Yeah. So then I really started playing hardball, because then it wasn't like, do you want to go get ice cream? Then it was, do you want to go to a Chiefs game? And so then
you said, wouldn't say no.
Yeah, she said yes, naturally. So that was the first sporting event that we went to. There are more to come. So I essentially was just coaxing you with sporting events at the beginning.
It's true. It worked.
Yep.
I took a photo. We still have that picture from the Chiefs game, because my sisters and my mom wanted to know what you looked like. This guy that was taking me to the Chiefs game. At this time, the Royals were now in the postseason and like strong contenders to go to the World Series. And I'm like, he also asked me to go to, the divisional round series. And so they wanted to see a picture. We took this photo for the sake of me sharing it with my sisters and my mom. And at this point still, I'm like, maybe after the Royal season's over, then we'll kick him to the curb. But
using me.
I was vulnerable. I'm a huge Chiefs fan. But we were still like, I was calling this like, we're just friends. This is one of my friends that's going to take me to the game. Like, I don't even think we had held hands.
Well, I remember vividly whenever the first time was when you let me hold your hand.
When?
It was on the way home from an ALCS game, because we had already gone to an ALDS game. Still didn't even get a handhold. But on the way back home to Columbia, we were in my truck, and after a win, so you were in a good mood. I got a handhold. And no, I remember that vividly.
That's sweet.
But there was the Chiefs game, then there was the ALDS, then there was ALCS,
which is the American League Divisional Series, the American League Championship Series.
Right.
And again, the first time that the Royals had ever been in these games in my entire lifetime. These are games like my dad cried over. They were huge, enormously important to like, just any Kansas City fan. So this was a huge deal that he had asked me. And to make it an even bigger deal, he, I don't know if you had that extra ticket or if you bought that extra ticket, but he took my sister that was in junior high at the time. He was like, yeah, Kerrigan can come with us to an ALDS game. This was unreal. My family couldn't believe it. So he took my little sister at the time in junior high to third wheel with us. And I think that was when we started talking about like when I was talking about it with my family, they're like, this guy means business. Like if he's basically bribing you to come to these games and bring in your sister, which again, I have to reflect back and give Brett more credit. I had told my roommate from the very beginning, this is the guy that you marry, but I don't want to get married. I'm 19. I just got to college. I want to have fun. I don't need to be with the guy that I'm going to get married.
Yeah, you were very persistent about that.
Or so I thought.
Yeah, you were very persistent about that. But ultimately, yeah, we went to those games, and then that's whenever I feel like I broke the ice, whenever you held my hand, and then I was like, okay, you kind of let the guards down a little bit. The dogs were kind of put on leashes and set back, because before it was just like full-blown security blankets everywhere. And then you finally just kind of let it down.
Yeah. This is fun. I like this.
In all reality, it probably took
It was
a month or two.
literally.
But in my mind at the time, it seemed like an eternity. I had never worked so hard.
Again, yeah.
Life was very simple at that time.
Yeah. You weren't used to anyone playing hard to get or genuinely not wanting to be God. wasn't my case, but you wore me down. So it was at one of those Royals games. My parents and my brother were there, and Brett met them. And I have an older brother, my only brother, who is 10 years older than me, and he's incredibly protective of all of his sisters. And being an older brother, or really like I am extremely protective of my siblings and anyone that they have a relationship with. Like, you can ask both of my older siblings. I was mean. Like, as an elementary kid, when my high school siblings would bring their boyfriends and girlfriends over, I was mean to them. I was that little kid that played pranks. I would, like, put jelly in your shoes or something. Like, I didn't want this girl sniffing around my brother. I did not want those boys around my sister. I was, and to this day, I'm incredibly protective. I'm very much a pack animal where I'm very, very protective of my own. But needless to say, my brother wanted to be very protective and is very protective. So naturally, he went into it. I'm not going to like this guy. I do not like anyone that likes my younger sisters. And I can quote Cody, "You just can't not like Brett Johnson. You really can't." He wore us all down. Immediately the time he met my parents, he met my brother, and they loved him from the very beginning. You're an incredibly likable human being. You really are.
It's very nice of you, and I try to be, I suppose.
And my family is also abrasive, especially compared to your family and just you in general. So he was kind of getting thrown to the wolves when he entered this family, but you've taken it in stride, and I think that we've rubbed off on you a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like through your family, like exposure to your family, this is gonna like come off like in a really bad way.
Bring it.
But like through osmosis, like I've become a little more like just laid back and more like a little bit more raw and real. I mean, I feel like
I think that's bad.
No, and I don't mean that in that way. I just mean it's not a bad thing. But I honestly like myself better now than I did at the time, because I was always so, and I still am to a point, self-critical to where I overthink what have said to somebody, or what an interaction with somebody, or a lack thereof. If somebody did or did not say something to me, and I've worked on that for a long time. But I think that I progressively over the past like 6-7 years, I have just progressively gotten a little bit better at that over time. It just seeing a different way of life, and like the way you all interact with each other. It's been like really good for me. I think it's made me a better human, just being more raw and real, and it's hard to describe it. I'm not the best at putting it into words, but it is true.
It makes me really happy to hear you say that. I was just like sitting here admiring you as you were talking about that. I love you. Wow, that makes me happy. We are better because you're in our family also. You've definitely rubbed off on us as well, but I'm glad that you got some good qualities from us, because my family absolutely adores Brett. There have been instances where we'll summarize an instance where my family wanted to take Brett over me. Excuse me. So we're going to fast forward. Brett and I started dating. And then very quickly after we started dating, it was head over heels. Like, I think 10 days, we were dating for probably 10 days, and Brett told me he loved me.
Yeah.
On that formal that he had asked me to originally.
Don't recommend that for most people.
Yeah.
Too soon, but I made it work.
Yeah, it was very fast, but it was one of those things, as cliche as it sounds, when you know, you know. So Brett and I started dating in 2015, and he graduated the following year. I still had 1 year left, and that summer, so it was the summer after he graduated, and I opted to take an extra workload, like course workload, so I could graduate a year early, because I had in the back of my mind that, like, you know, I was ready to get out of college. I was ready to start my life with Brett. And obviously we're fast forwarding now, because we could talk for 7 hours, you know, just replaying all of this. So at this time we had been dating for probably a year and a half, and I had a sneaking suspicion that things were going to, you know, get even more serious shortly, now that he is in the real world. He graduated, and then I would, you know, if I graduated that next year, then, you know, I would be free to do whatever, marry whoever. So
whoever gets on a knee for me,
you know. So the summer after he graduated, I was going into what would have been my junior year / senior year. I graduated in 3. So we went to Memphis with our friends, and we're just gonna like clump all of this together for detailing purposes. We went to Memphis, which is where that original formal had been.
I had this huge plan.
Yeah, again, I don't deserve Brett Johnson, but I hope everyone finds their own. He had made this.
Went to shit.
The plan went to shit. That same formal, you know, that he told me he loved me for the first time, it was in Memphis. And so we went back with our best friends over the summer, and he had planned that whole weekend was going to be when he proposed. And we were both still in this, you know, wild, we love to party and drink with our friends, that phase. Which is, I think that's so important as to why we should do this episode, so you guys can kind of get a little perspective, because we are extremely disciplined and, you know, routine people now, but that hasn't always been the case. And I think that this can give a little relatability and perspective that maybe you're in that phase right now. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean,
you go through phases of life.
Yeah, and like I said, now it gives us such good perspective. But we were in Memphis regardless. We had gone to Coyote Ugly for the end of the night, and that thing closes down at like 3 a.m. And nothing good happens in Memphis past midnight. I can assure you of that. But we were there until 3, and they shut down the bar. We're all outside. Like, Brett is talking to some of our guy friends there. And, you know, at this point, as we can throw back to the beginning of this conversation, I was
being a street youth,
lubricated with alcohol, as Brett would say. And I started chatting up some locals that were on the sidewalk. And I have been told probably my entire life by my family that your mouth is going to get you beat up, or your mouth is going to get you killed. As you guys who, if you've been around me for any amount of time, know I'm pretty chatty. I'm pretty honest. And I'm very sarcastic. So after an entire night of drinking, and, you know, some liquid courage, I was chatting up these locals, and I said something that must not have sat right with them. So this man swung on me. So mind you, at this point, I'm 21, too bold. But anyway, I got swung on by this man, and he had friends. So he actually he hit me in the shoulder, like punched me in the shoulder.
I don't know if your reflexes were that well intact. Did you dodge like that?
It was like the Matrix. That's exactly what it was like.
Yeah. You just slowed it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just not quite slow enough. So
alcohol usually slows reflexes, not me though.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, this man swung, he punched me like in the shoulder, and I know.
Meanwhile, I was over getting my money taken by some shyster with some, you know, like little hand, you know, they use their cards, and they hide cards, and they try to make you think you can win a game, and then
it was like a street magician that Brett got fooled by. But anyway,
but I did see this.
I know for a fact that he hit me at my shoulder. This part is not exaggerated or generalized or anything, because I was wearing a blue tank top, and the strap of that tank top was ripped. So then that strap like flung off. You could see my strapless bra. And Brett caught the tail end of that. So he charged to my rescue, trying to stand up for me, and got completely blindsided, punched in the face, and knocked out cold. These men ran away. And I had just instigated, I say instigated, I was sarcastic, running my mouth, and I was the cause of Brett, now unconscious, laying on the sidewalk, and I'm freaking out. I'm terrified because he looks dead. He's not moving at all. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen, I don't think that I had ever seen anyone knocked out cold, and especially someone that I was just like madly in love with. And obviously, you know, being drunk just heightened all emotions. So I'm crying. Our guy friend is like this 6'6" guy, this massive man. He's sitting on the sidewalk crying next to me. And someone called 911. So the ambulance comes, takes Brett. We met him at the hospital. We had to Uber there. And needless to say, there's a hilarious photo. Brett is fine, obviously. There's a hilarious photo of Brett and I waiting for an Uber. Waiting for an Uber in the hospital parking lot. He's wearing a hospital gown. I am standing there just looking like an absolute train wreck. My spaghetti straps tank top is flipped open so you can see my strapless bra. He's got his arm draped around me, and we just look like hot messes. And this is, mind you,
still in my gown.
Yeah, he's got his gown and jeans on. And this is 7 a.m. waiting for an Uber back to our hotel from the hospital.
With a bloody stump of a half of a face.
Brett's face was so swollen. His eye was swollen shut. And the man that punched him was wearing a $sign ring. And Brett had
perfectly imprinted
a $sign imprinted on his cheekbone.
It's scabbed.
And it's scabbed. It was kind of a cool scab, honestly. You know, chicks love scars.
I still had it.
But what a mess. And anyway, back to what got me talking about this story is that is certainly one point when we went back to my home and we told the story that my family wanted to keep Brett and throw me away because I was the one that ran my mouth and got this whole thing started. But Brett ended up proposing to me at Kauffman Stadium, which is the Royals Stadium. And here we are. But we took engagement pictures. Brett had a partially black eye still with a $sign imprint on there. Which, like I said, I think it's cool.
Yeah. It's nice to reflect on.
Yeah.
How far we've come.
Yeah. So yeah, we got engaged a couple weeks later. And it's crazy. This is wild because we don't want to take up all of your time. But I had just turned 21 when you proposed, and then we got married like 9 or 10 months later, and I was so like not a doubt in my mind, and to this day there's not a doubt in my mind that it's always been you. But geez, thinking about a 21-year-old getting married, I was so young.
Yeah, at the time it didn't seem weird at all. Like, it didn't seem early, it just seemed very natural. And I guess it's just one of those things, like, when you know, you know. But looking back on it now, I'm like, holy cow, we were really young. Like, now I see someone who just turned 21, and I'm like, wow, it would be really weird if you were engaged like Lexi was.
Yeah, because I'm 26, and we're going to be married for 5 years in June.
Yeah, it is interesting, the perspective you get on things later on.
But I also think it's so cool. It's always been you, so I don't have any doubts about it. But it's really neat to have lived that era of our lives together, and just how our priorities have shifted. And you and I, it was never a point where, okay, I'm making these changes in my life, or you're either coming or you're going. Like, we kind of just evolved and have grown together, which I think is really unique and special because we have been, locked at the hip since I was 19.
Yeah, truly inseparable. We have spent very little time apart from each other. But yeah, we've gone through a lot of evolutions, and yeah, I mean, we've evolved from what we just described to today, and there's been a lot that was in between, and it's just wild and we're still just getting started, I mean, we're not even, in our 30s. We're still a little ways away from 30. I guess I'm not that far away, which is, but it's just wild to think that how much we've evolved as humans to get to this point that we're at today and where we started.
Yeah. So I hope that gave you guys a little bit more perspective or maybe relatability, because I can definitely recognize that sometimes Brett and I we operate very well day to day. We are very routine animals, creatures of habit for sure. So, and much of what we talk about is what's relevant right now in our lives and how we function and in this very disciplined state. But I hope that gave some perspective that it certainly hasn't always been that way.
And I think that it helps us to stay where we are today because we weren't before. You go through that phase and you're like, I don't want to go back there. I've done that, been there, done that. I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Because you figure out, I remember at the time exactly how I felt physically, how I felt mentally, and I don't want to go back there.
Yeah, you hear people say, I would do anything to go back to college, or, I can't relate any less to that.
Oh, no, I never want to go back to college. I on occasion, on a blue moon, we'll try to relive what, a college day, just a normal college day was like when we go back to a Mizzou home game or something, and we try to do what we did before, and it's like, whoa.
We can't hang.
No,
can't
do it.
I so much enjoy this stage of life that we're in right now.
Yeah, and maybe it's perspective on how good I feel whenever I'm not like that. Maybe before I just didn't know how good I could feel because that was just the norm. Yeah. There's a lot to that.
And it could be recency bias. My hope is that 10 years down the road, we'll be able to reflect on this era, this period of time, and be like, man, we thought we felt good then. We thought we were, crazy about each other then. And that it just keeps evolving that way, because so far that's kind of been the case. But yeah, I think we're just getting started.
Yeah. Things seem like so permanent in the moment, but everything is so temporary, and I like where we're headed.
Yeah, this was fun. Strolling down memory lane.
Reminiscing.
Yeah. I have said it once. I'll say it a million times. I hope everyone finds their own Brett Johnson. Truly. All right, guys. I love you too. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you again next week.